Hello and good evening. We are here to cover Loki Season 3 here on the Mary Mater Marvel Society. I'm Dave Mater, and I'm
Season
joined
2.
Season 2 of Loki from here in the Mary Mater Marvel Society. No fancy intros these times, guys, because we got lots going on in our lives. We're moving different things. So normally we have a little bit of an intro video, but tonight we're just jumping right in because Loki Season 2 has ended. We're also going to try to get a podcast in about the Marvels, which is coming out tonight. So we have to get a couple podcasts in here. I'm joined with Jaemeel Robinson. How you doing tonight, Jaemeel?
Hello. Howdy
This-
ho.
You guys are doing a podcast about the Marvels tonight?
No, not tonight.
Howdy ho.
Hello, Miss Myette.
Don't look into my voice actor. There's a lot of problems. Ooh.
Yeah, welcome to the Mary Mater Marvel Society. And it's our Loki Season 2 review. Spoilers ahoy. And we'll be talking about the whole season. Oh, with your hosts, Dave, Davan, and Jaemeel. Okay, guys. Did you like Loki? Season 2?
Loved it.
Yes,
Loved
I
it.
did.
I was big on it. I was really into it. And last night when I watched that finale, I was like, wow, this was really good. I was pretty pleased with how it went. However, it wasn't completely what I was expecting. I thought, there was some stuff about season 1 I really liked, that it was very different from in tone and how they went with this season. And but some other things that, them being unexpected didn't necessarily make them bad. It just wasn't what I had sort of imagined where they were going to go this season, or even episode to episode. I was like, oh, where are they going next? And I was always kind of surprised with what they would do next. Do you guys have any sort of disappointments with the show, or any critiques coming in, sort of top of mind? Jaemeel?
Oh, me first. No. So with the God of Stories, okay.
The God of Stories.
As I was about to monologue, with a Marvel property, usually there's a couple of facets that it can be judged on. First one is for how it interconnects and moves the MCU story along, right? And then there's also the content itself as a story. Now, one of the issues that people have been saying about Marvel in Phase 4, post Endgame, is that doesn't necessarily seem to be a lot of direction. And finally doing something about this, Marvel is now indicating what is a piece of MCU content that moves the overall story along, and then pieces of MCU content that just is kind of self-contained. So they have the Marvel Spotlight banner that's going to be used for Echo, for example.
Right.
So I think that this piece, Loki, does a great job in both realms. It is a great television series on its own, separate. At the same time, it does actually progress the story of the MCU going forward, and answers a lot of questions, as well as to why exactly a multiverse still exists, even though there's only supposed to be the sacred timeline.
So, okay. And Davin, you next. What did you have anything with the did you have any issues with the show this season, or were you all pretty positive on it?
No, I was pretty all in on this season. I thought it was well acted. I like how it's basically set up Secret Wars. And if they do that Kang Dynasty movie, of course, it set up that as well. And it, allows for the X-Men and everything to trickle their way into the MCU, which is what we all want to see, I think. And but yeah, like Jaemeel said, it was great on its own. I was kind of hoping Thor would come in at the end, maybe, and say, "You did good, brother." But that'll happen in a movie.
Yeah, they're gonna save that one. Yeah,
it was very cinematic though, that ending, didn't you think? Though he's grabbing.
Oh yeah,
the time,
very cinematic. This show is blew me away in terms of I had forgotten. It had been 2 years since season 1, and these last 6 episodes, have been really good. And I was watching the first episode of season 1, the original pilot. I guess if you can call it a pilot. tonight just before this podcast, and I was like, this was really good. Like everything about this show, the aesthetics, the music, the visual effects, the writing, the way that the cast is coming together, it's really, really strong. It's probably one of the strongest things the MCU has, and right now where I feel like there's sort of been a lot of hits and misses, along the way. I hear a lot of misses lately in MCU land with, maybe Secret Invasion and being sort of top of mind. The last podcast we did here in this set, this is very far from that. This is very well narratively put together. Everything makes sense. You're into the story, and I'm really left at the end of this season going, where do they go next with this? Where does season 3 pick up? There will be a season 3 or isn't there? It's kind of a little bit ambiguous to me. Where
I wouldn't think so.
No, like, do you feel like this was an ending? Jaemeel?
Well, this is it's until the movies.
So you just kind of just bypassed me, Davan. I think this is an.
I just want to hear what he thinks. I
I think this is an ending for now, right? Understand that Loki's story isn't necessarily just about Loki himself, right? It is about the TVA, right?
Yes, I accept that.
So for the next part of the story, right, the TVA isn't necessarily going to be the central figure of said story. So it would be kind of pointless to have a season 3 if the real story of the TVA is going to be maybe post Kang Dynasty, right? Or they're going to just redirect and it's going to be about more Mobius and B-15 or something along those lines. But for now, in terms of where all the pieces lay, there is a new status quo that's been established. And until that status quo is threatened by some sort, right, and the aftermath needs to be a story, this is the end for now.
This is it. We got 2 seasons.
Why not?
It would have to be a new story. They'd have to start telling a new story in a new season. Yeah, that's the end of this story. As we say around here, well, in the comics.
There you go.
Loki is now the god of stories in the comics, not the god of mischief. And that's what they've done here. They've made him the god of stories.
Will we see this Loki again? Will we see this particular variant of Loki pop up again?
Yes, he's Loki. He's our Loki.
Meaning what? Where he'll be in the Avengers movie? Is that where I'm going to see him next? That's what's
if we ever see Loki again, it'll be him.
That's your prediction.
I think that we're going to see both Lokis.
The dead one too?
No, Sylvie Loki. Sorry.
We'll see Sylvie.
Yeah, she's still a Loki.
She's the Enchantress. She's Enchantress. Come on, she enchants. They call it enchanting. She's the Enchantress.
She's a well, we'll talk about her. When we break down. I think we should talk. We'll talk about all the episodes and all the characters and what they did with them in this season, or the ending. Like I didn't feel like this was like the finale. I feel like there's more to come.
Finale, but what do you mean finale?
Like, will we see the show Loki again? Where we get the TVA? We're gonna have B-15 and Casey and all of them. Or we get OP, OB. Is this a thing, or because at the end, like Owen Wilson, Mobius, there he kind of leaves, right? He says, "I'm going somewhere," and we don't really know.
He's gonna go live a life.
He's gonna go live a life on the timeline, right?
Yeah.
They show him, I think, with his kids at the end.
So if the show does come back, could there just be a TVA show that comes out of this, or is a Loki show where it's Loki and the TVA done?
But Dave, what do you want from a TVA show if there's no, like, what is the story that is progressing?
It could be like a cop show, where they're kind of always going on, like they're catching the time criminals.
You want an MCU procedural.
I want an MCU time cop procedural.
He wants the Mobius B-15 time cop procedural. Yeah.
Like Loki and Mobius, they're always like cracking cases. They're going out, they're investigating.
So, okay, what you're asking for is for them to go, okay, we'll do this, but
I
the
don't think he
budget,
really wants this.
the budget that they currently have, which is, I suspect maybe 15 million an episode, right? 15 million episode, they're gonna probably cut it down to 5, right?
I'll watch it.
You see, people say that until they're like, "Why does it look so bad?" Right?
Well,
It's
no,
like
they should make it look good.
it costs money for it to
but
look
make it
good.
look good.
They already got the sets. They know how to they know what camera effect to do on it. It's all kind of set up, right? They have
It's not like they just go outside and film on a street location. Like even to go through a door is like, so they're gonna cut away like She-Hulk anytime they do any type of special effects, so they can say Miss Munitz is not gonna exist. She's gonna be on a computer screen going forward.
I don't know what they're gonna do. I was left sort of lost here, and I feel like if I had a disappointment with the season, to answer my original question, I feel like I wanted more episodes. I wanted more of them time traveling and kind of figuring things out, and I feel like it was a little fast with these 6 episodes. I would have liked 10 episodes.
Dave, I don't want to keep harping on you, but like we always hear with a lot of more MCU content television, it's like, oh, it feels like they're stretching out the content. They do 2 episodes where they establish, and then there's like a status quo gully, and then they have like the 5th episode that kind of changes everything, and then it's the finale where they rush. This felt like they had a beginning, middle, and end. It felt correctly paced through the entire show for me personally. I never felt like things were being rushed or things were going too slow. Everything had its time and moment to be important. And so I don't know, like I'm worried that if you kind of like take what we had and got more, that we would get less as a result. That's my only concern.
Okay, well, fair
I'm
enough.
not sure what that more would be.
More episodes, more I liked this season having Loki and Mobius sort of like almost like partners, trying to kind of figure out what to do post they had to deal with him time slipping initially in the first episode, and maybe that's a good segue, guys. Like, let's talk about the 6 episodes. The first episode is called Ouroboros, directed by Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, and written by Eric Martin. And that's where they're trying, that's where he's time slipping at the beginning of the season, going between the couple times. That's kind of where we left season 1, on that cliffhanger where we see he who remains as a statue within the time variance authority kind of, there. And we don't know what's happened. We feel like the time's been reset, but it turns out, no, this is like the past. And Loki keeps time slipping between the earlier version of the TVA and the TVA that he knew later, which is later on in the TVA's timeline, right? So that was the reveal.
Pretty good summary, Dave. It was shaky ground in the beginning, but keeping it low key with Dave.
So Loki and Mobius, they go to see Ouroboros, right? Ouroboros, OB, who is played by how do you say
Kwan,
right? So who I really liked on this season. I liked his presence in this cast. I thought he brought a real extra fun to the show. Really fit in well. Brought a lot of good MacGuffins into the different scenes. Was sort of like the chief engineer, sort of know-it-all scientist guy, with expert of everything. I really enjoyed him in the show. I liked him and the guy who plays Casey from
and Casey.
Yeah, Eugene Cordero. Rutherford, yeah. From Star Trek Lower Decks.
Pillboy.
Yeah,
he's Pillboy from The Good
All
Place
the
too.
writing around OB was hilarious. Like the fact that he's like, Mobius, I haven't seen you in 1,000 years. He's like, you're like the last one who visited me.
Right. OB. Ki Huan, we meet him, and then we see that they're asking him all these questions, and then like Loki going between the different time periods. Like the earlier version of OB who's like more like buttoned down and got like a different hairstyle, but basically it looks the same. And you see the workshop has a little bit different look back at those times. Really liked how he was changing the past to affect like what was happening when he would come back to the present day, I guess, if you want to call it that, within the TVA, or at least where we were on the sacred timeline, maybe. And yeah, like it was
didn't have any problem with that.
No problems. I really this was really fun. I like time travel stories. I really like sort of timey-wimey Doctor Who kind of weird stuff like this. This was really working well for me. I thought it was really funny in the first episode with Owen Wilson. Just like when he was watching him time slip, he's like, "It's awful. It's horrible to watch, and I can't lie about it." And then in the elevator, this is where I'm like, I don't even care if it got slow and boring and like the filler episodes. This is the show that I wouldn't mind it on, because I just enjoy watching it, so I guess that's a good thing.
For me, for timey-wimey stories, I find it's easy for me to stop caring or not care at all because it's so timey-wimey. But it's not the case. So that's a tribute to the writing.
Yeah, the writing really does position this idea that just because you're this variant doesn't mean you don't matter, and doesn't mean you don't deserve a life and sort of your existence, just because it's kind of about like self-determination versus fate. And there's a lot of different themes in the show that I think that they keep going for, that leaves me wanting more all the time. I'm like, yeah, let's talk more about that. Let's present that, like, and through the lens of Loki, is always really interesting, being like this sort of villain. I think his redemption story in this whole show is really fun and interesting, and well earned, because he already kind of did that in like the proper MCU timeline, and now you get this version who's had a different story, largely, except after the events of Avengers, right? And but has gone through all this other things, because if you watch like the first episode, they bring up, like, remember when you killed Coulson? But not really, I guess, because he comes back in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But I guess he
branch timeline.
Branch timeline. Remember when you you scoop that guy's eye out in the Avengers?
Well, Daddy remembers.
Daddy remembers.
Likes that one.
Yeah. So like this guy was a villain, like a straight up murderer too. He kills like 7 people in Avengers, at least, right?
But in the grand scheme of things, if we're going, well, how many people did people kill? Tony Stark has him kind of beat in that regard in terms of how many people generally he's responsible for killing. Even before he became Iron Man.
Well, you could make that argument, sure. I'm not going to dispute that per se. Weapons dealers, different blood, sort of context. But yes, that's all right. Yeah,
I just mean like, we can question the redemptive story for anyone, because there's lots of individuals who are villains who are Avengers, like Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. They didn't just come to the party like as newborn babes as well. So
they were in the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants.
And also in the MCU, they were with Ultron, and it's not like Ultron didn't kill anyone.
Exactly. And just to wrap up the first episode, guys, so we saw how Loki had to get like pruned from the timeline in the first episode. Like Ouroboros gives him this whole plan of like, well, you can't time slip, and you would have to be pruned on purpose so that you could come back in and get then pulled in back into the timeline again, which ends up working in the episode. We see he gets pruned, and we don't know who does it, and later on we find out it was him who pruned himself in that moment in the hallway just before he ran into Sylvie, who we see there, who I thought was pretty good in this season again, but I didn't like the hairstyle. That's just
really,
yeah. I like the season 1 hairstyle better, but that's who am I to say? So,
Dave doesn't like bangs.
Yeah,
not a bangs man.
Yeah, I guess not.
She was wearing, I think, an 80s appropriate hairstyle.
Fair enough, and then so we saw in the first episode, it's revealed where she goes, because we don't see her for the whole first episode until the mid credits scene, where she ends up in Oklahoma, 1982, on McDonald's, and we keep coming back to this McDonald's for the rest of the season, right? In this particular 1982,
Oklahoma.
yeah. And she was like, we see that they were offering the McNuggets, and then we were watching this, Jane and I, and she was just like, no, they didn't have the McNuggets yet in 1982, but it turned out they did. They had just introduced them in limited cities and markets in 1982, so it was possible.
Yeah. So the McDonald's product placement was not McDonald's reaching out to Marvel. It was Marvel reaching out to McDonald's. So they planned to do McDonald's. It was not something where McDonald's got involved with Marvel. And they're like, "Hey, we got this nifty show, Loki, and I think it'll be a great place to put in that McDonald's advertisement." Yeah, it was. They were looking for time appropriate connection, and they were able to work with McDonald's in that regard. So that's why a lot of the garb, a lot of the information was exact, because it was a partnership reached out from Marvel from a story perspective.
Yeah, it looked like really authentic, like really like back 1982 style McDonald's, I guess.
Is it sad that I missed how simple things were?
No, I think that's kind of a natural thing you do as you get older.
Not a computer that I have to deal with, but like an actual person that will take my order and then will make my food and hand it to me. I'm not looking up at a board that has a number.
Right. It's not like those LED screens now. It's all like moving around and flashing and whatever. It was more simple, in those days. That's for sure. Guys, let's talk about episode 2, Breaking Brad. Which heavily features the Hunter X-15, who we also saw in episode 1, where there's that whole scene with him and Mobius where he's like, where's your jet ski? And he starts talking about jet skis, and he's like, I don't care. He's like, then why'd you ask?
Because he sees the thing on Mobius's desk.
Right.
But Dave, that brings up a very good point about this show and what the show does. The show subtly brings back elements from the first season that they know that they're going to pay off before the end of the season. So, reminding individuals about Morbius's love for, the water, the jet skis, right? So for an example, right? They're putting that element there in the public's mind because they know they're going to pay it off later on. And they do little things throughout the earlier episodes that really, bring that home, right? Reestablishes people's motivations, like Sylvie. When we come back to Sylvie, it isn't like heavy exposition dump. They do it very subtly. Another nod to the great writing that's there.
Right. Fair enough. And okay, let's talk about Brad. The guy that they're hunting in the beginning of this episode in London, 1977, who he was a hunter. Bradward. This is the scene also you see where Loki has there's 3 of them, and then he uses a lot of his Loki powers to sort of intimidate and get
the premier Zaniac.
Yeah, the premier Zaniac. They pull him down. Then there was a lot in that episode about all the timelines were branching, and there was a lot of chaos within the TVA.
They do a good job of mentioning. I don't know if people are paying attention. You can watch a story without having that level of detail of paying attention, but they really went out of the way to indicate what was the sacred timeline and which was a branch timeline.
Yeah, you had to look down when they would go to the different places. What was a branch timeline? Was the sacred timeline? And we didn't even understand why that mattered so much until later on in the season, as we got a little bit deeper into it. But back in episode 2. There was also a lot of that stuff where Loki, Mobius, and there was B5 or Brad. They traveled to Oklahoma. They found Sylvie working at McDonald's. Loki told her about the TVA's future, and she was just she was not having any. She wasn't going to help him at all. She was happy with. She didn't want to help the TVA, whereas Loki was more into sort of becoming like an agent of the TVA, and he's like, it's our best option. We have to try to save it. We have to try to pull things together for everybody, and he becomes a hero. In a lot of ways, I think Loki he's always the guy trying, whereas Sylvie just kind of wants to retire now. She's been running her whole life, and she's kind of done with it, right? So,
would you like a Renslayer Bradward buddy cop show, Dave?
I would not like the show with those two so much.
No.
Renslayer, who I think did she come back in this episode in Miss Minutes? I think we also see in Brad. They were Brad was not in the first season, right? He was only in this season.
What do you think of their death box machine?
So to answer Dave's question, I don't believe he was. Davan, the death box was such a scary ass piece of equipment. Oh my gosh.
Well, I think there's a couple additions to this season like him that really do help with the show. I think you have a lot of the season 1 people like Casey and of course Mobius and B-15 and Renslayer's back too, in some regards here and there. And
somebody's got to slay those Wrens.
Right. Well, like I guess with the Renslayer stuff, like her and Miss Minutes being this evil diabolical duo, how that was kind of how season 2 episode 2 ends, with them sort of getting together and trying to take people, they're going to take things down, and they kind of do go on quite a rampage here because they're on like the He Who Remains plan. You see that they give the book to the young Victor Timely. Who is the variant of He Who Remains from like the 1870s?
93.
Yeah. 1893. By the time we catch up with him, but he's a much younger kid. I think he's like 1870s or something when they like drop off
1868 is when they drop off the book. You're right.
Right. And then he grows up, into the Chicago Fair and everything else. And that kind of transitions us into episode 3, which is called 1893. That one directed by Khosrow Farahani and was written by Eric Martin and Khosrow Farahani, as well, the director of the episode, as well as Jason O'Leary. And that's where they're going at. They drop off the book to him in 1868. Then we go to 1893, Chicago's World Fair on the branch timeline, where Loki and Mobius are like on the case, and they're all like dressed up in the period stuff. And this was one of my favorite episodes. I'm like, we could give me like 3 more episodes like this, where they don't even find what's happening. Like it's just a series of dead ends. It's like Law and Order. They just go to this guy, to this guy, to this guy, to get to the guy, right? So
I'd get tired of that.
No, Dave, no.
All
right. Well, maybe I'm out a limb here. So, but
Jaemeel would be all for it. He loves procedurals, but I would get tired.
Look, Dave, I would wish that they would make it, put it as deleted scenes and special bonus episodes just for you.
Well, hey, fair, that's just what I want. I wanted more. I just want more because I'm a fan. Okay, let's talk about like Victor Timely, because this is really his episode where we're introduced to him and his little presentation and everything else. And he's of course played by Jonathan Majors. He, as well as He Who Remains. There's some controversy around him as he's on trial for some things, and we'll see how things shake out.
Some things.
I don't know what exactly. Jaemeel, did you care to comment?
Do we want to get into that kind of conversation though?
Well, okay, no, probably not.
Because at the same time, we would have to talk about what's it called again? Tara Strong and Miss Minutes as well. She's not in vogue as well right now.
Not in vogue. Is that the term when you're on the outside? I don't know anything about that either. So maybe we'll just keep it to the. She's
a Zionist.
I don't. Yeah, let's just talk about the characters in the show. We're not going to talk about the actors in real life who play them. That's not what we need to talk about. Like, so we're just going. That's the show that was presented to us. So Victor, but I thought that Victor Timely was a fun character. I thought an interesting, trying to figure out, okay, why is this variant in the 1800s? But I think that other variants of He Who Remains would be from other time periods.
So Davan, you want to answer this question as to why there's a variant in 1868 in the comics.
There's Kang variants farther back than that. There's
But
Kang
I'm
variants.
in terms of like there are Kang variants distributed as a child through different time periods and different branches.
Oh sure, yeah. There's Kangs everywhere, and like some of them like don't even know they're Kang, and well, most of them don't know they're Kang, I think. But eventually they figure it out. Usually, like there's even like Iron Lad. He was just this kid, and they're like, "You're going to become Kang." And he's like, "What? I don't
Did
want
he
to be
become Kang?
Well,
Yes.
well,
He did. Well,
not
he did become
exactly.
Kang,
Not
but
exactly.
he was against it for a long time, and then
They
eventually
get a long time.
Yeah, he fought it. He fought it. And then he's like, "Okay, I'll be Kang."
Yeah. So, like, for example, in the like main MCU timeline, right? There are like Ramatut, and you have your Victor Timely, and there's various like Kangs throughout time, right?
Okay, so
In
it's
this
not
case,
weird that we
yeah,
got an 1890s.
yeah,
No.
in the MCU, they just do it by branch timelines instead. So it's a little bit different, but more or less it's the same.
Okay. I really liked this episode, the aesthetics, like how they depicted this fair. There was a lot of the stuff also with Miss Minutes and Victor Timely and all that creepy stuff where she was like, "I could be your girl," and then we were getting all like
I love you. I love you.
because she's obsessed with He Who Remains, who created her to play chess, but then eventually she became like this super sophisticated AI, which is kind of evil.
That's why Davan says, "Beware the computers. Beware the
Yeah.
computers."
Where's Kirk when you need him to talk a computer to death, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so at the end of that, so like there's in that episode there's a lot of like interesting scenes there between Renslayer, Miss Minutes, and Victor Timely.
Yeah.
Like when they drop off Renslayer on the boat and then they go off, but then just for Timely to figure out that Miss Minutes is even crazier than Renslayer, so it's like and then he
They
gets
do a-
like saved sort of in that episode, right?
Yeah.
But there was also all that stuff there where we saw that the rogue TVA people led by that Scottish woman who I can't
Docs.
remember. Yeah, she was like a general or whatever. She was like, "No, we have to keep pruning the timelines," and they kept go off. And there's a battle in that episode where sort of like where they apprehend all those people, where they'll eventually be put in the box, and it doesn't go so well. But we'll get to that episode.
Yeah, but I like the fact that they really established the Kang character in terms of like various personality traits via Victor Timely. So I don't have partners. I don't work with partners, right?
That's like the one
Right?
trait they all have in common.
Well, that's what we see, and it's just that's why a Kang council can never work, and why the multiversal war happens, because even if they have the same type of thought process, motivation, same objective, they can't help but like jockey for position as who's going to be the one that remains, right? He who remains. So you see, if you're paying attention, which I know all of you were, great people,
Mm-hmm.
Dave, Davan, wonderful people.
Was totally.
When Renslayer talks about being a partner, and immediately that that's not going to work, and you see how the result of that was fantastic. And we see it later on play out where he kind of makes Victor Timely, He Who Remains, makes promises. I know it's two separate people. Makes promises, and when he puts that key piece of information in, that's a betrayal as well. It's fantastic character work that they. I keep talking about how great this show is, but you're going to see in my ratings.
Right. Well, yeah, and so like episode 3, I really enjoyed everything they gave us in that episode. Let's talk about the 4th episode a little bit. Heart of the TVA, directed by Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, and written by Eric Martin and Catherine Blair. So Miss Minutes reveals that in the past, Renslayer and commanded we see all that flashback, right, where He Who Remains army, that he because we heard that recording at the beginning of the season where it was Renslayer and he
Hero
remains
remains.
talking in the TVA, and then we see the scene where he was like, you were on my side. Thank you for being on my team, Renslayer. He's like, for all time, and she goes, always. Was that where it started? Is that where the saying started? But then we also see that Renslayer leaves, and he's like, erase all their memories. We have to get out of here, and she's like, okay, Miss Minutes just goes and does it, including Renslayer, because again, to your point, the one thing that the Kangs all have in common is they can't work with partners, and that's why Kang's like, no, Renslayer, she's too much of a rival for me. She's too much of a partner, so I have to get her memory erased so that I can keep her down, and then we'll eventually invent the timekeepers and erase everybody's memories again about who's really in charge, right? Because Kang is pulling the strings, and that's in the fourth episode. We also see like them coming to the present day Miss Minutes and Renslayer, because we see I guess it's also at the end of the third episode where she's like, we don't need him, and we never did, referring to He Who Remains, right? So it seems like Renslayer and Miss Minutes are going to really tear some stuff up. That was one thing I felt like they didn't really get enough. Yes, they crushed all those people in the box, and that was horrific. That's in this episode. I thought that they're sort of not necessarily even the antagonists of the season. They're sort of a nuisance in some ways, right? Because ultimately it comes down to like Loki having to sort of solve these much bigger, huge issues and take that onto himself, right? And so Renslayer, Miss Minutes, in the grand scheme of all that, seems kind of trivial, right? And that's kind of eventually where we get to. But in this fourth episode, it seems to really matter, So we're seeing all of that really play out here with like there's Brad, all those people who were captured. What do we do with them? See that Hunter B-15 wants to have all this compassion, and that's eventually where Renslayer and Miss Minutes jump in, and they're like, no, join us. You can have a life on the timeline if you help us restore order to the TVA. And only B-15 Brad goes with her, right? Because he really liked his life in the 70s running movies or whatever he was doing.
He was an actor. He was the Zaniac.
Yeah. And we had seen like earlier in the season where he was being interrogated in the box, because they had this room where it creates like this box force field thing that goes around you and like crushes you. Like it keeps getting smaller and smaller.
It's like a physical light projection where the light has a physical form.
Right.
So that's how they're able to manipulate and create the box. That it is a creepy piece of technology.
Is that from the comics?
Well, yeah, that's used in a lot of pieces of media, like that physical light projection, and being able, like, I guess a good example of something that's similar to that is Invisible Woman's powers, her force fields, right?
Okay. But is the TVA a thing in the comics?
Yeah, TVA is a thing.
And do they have that box thing where they can crush people in the box?
I've never seen that.
Yeah,
they may have been it for the show. Okay, but we see that whole scene where they all like the captured TVA people who were like pruning everything again, and they got captured by B-15 and Loki and Mobius and them. They're like, none of them are like, we would all rather die than go with you, Renslayer. It's like, whoa, that's saying something, right? Where they all get, it's like 20 people. They all get like crushed in this box. It's like horrific stuff. And all we do is like we hear it and we see like Miss Minutes like watching and getting all excited and getting all.
And Bradford's expressions as well.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't even need to. He's like, no. And then we see him like he goes cold. He's like, now I am broken forever. And then like 10 minutes later,
so are the people in the box.
Yeah, they're all. Yeah, we even like see later when 15 finds them, and she's like, "What am I looking at? Oh my god!" And she's just she can't even really figure out that they've all been like what I don't even know what that would look like. I guess we'll never know because they don't try to show us on the show.
I'm glad that I didn't. It is nothing I really need to see. Well, yeah, I don't really need to see that.
So it ends up like where Sylvie and Loki get together. We see him prune himself. Like they close that loop from episode 1.
The Ouroboros.
Or the Ouroboros of it all. And then that eventually leads to like they enchant Brad, and then that he prunes Renslayer, And then they eventually hack into right before that they hack into Miss Minutes and they take her down.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
it's like
down. They get rid of the magic suppressing devices in a TVA, and then they start their plan to try to fix the loom. The loom is what is causing the destruction to the TVA, which is all the branch timelines being fed through this kind of machine that kind of simplifies it into a sacred timeline, or I guess a more condensed beam. And because of the amount of branch timelines, it's not able to handle processing all that information. Thus, it is being it's causing a lot of energy surges, and therefore that's what is hampering and attacking and destroying the TVA.
Right. And I thought that eventually becomes like the big crisis that they're solving. It's barely started in this episode and that will be playing really out for the next couple of episodes where they're trying to get back to that moment or change what happened there, where eventually they'll destroy it. Like a lot of things with OBs, like, do you know if you go anywhere like into too much temporal radiation or in a black hole, you'll turn into spaghetti? And then I think is it in this episode that we actually see him turn into spaghetti? Yeah.
We see Victor Timely is they have like a device that that Timely and Ouroboros work together to build that's supposed to cause the loom to increase its input capacity to handle an output, right, that won't destroy the TVA. And Timely takes responsibility of doing the job, and the moment that he's his hero moment as he exits the barricaded doors to go and to fix the loom, he's immediately spaghettified, and we're kind of left with like, that's not supposed to happen. What's gonna happen? And
that's the end. Yeah,
what? It was a great ending, great cliffhanger ending, where everyone's kind of like, what's gonna happen?
Did you guys talk about when Timely and OB were geeking out about each other?
Yes.
Like, you describe my TVA guide.
Yeah. Your work is based on his work, and his work's based on your work. It was kind of like the bootstrap paradox, and like that's what I also enjoy about the show is like all these different sort of timey, weird things sort of overlapping that they kind of like making you think. It's I enjoy that the show is actually trying to do some interesting things. It's not just all eye candy and just sort of like visual effects and whatever. It's got a lot of substance to it too. And I also like that the spaghettification thing. Like I was like, oh, people turning spaghetti, that's a thing in astrophysics. Vertical stretching and horizontal compression of objects into long, thin shapes, rather like spaghetti, in a very strong, non-homogeneous gravitational field caused by extreme tidal forces, usually near a black hole. So like that's and that's kind of what OB describes, and we see that happen to Victor
that didn't happen to Matthew McConaughey in Interstellar.
Well, it should have.
That was a terrible movie.
I'm sorry, I knew that would cause that reaction, and that's why I said it.
Let's talk about a little bit episode 5, which is called Science/Fiction, directed by Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, who and written by Eric Martin, who will also direct and write the next episode. So we see Loki survives the explosion after the TVA explodes and everything happened with Timely, but the TVA headquarters has been spaghettified. Loki starts time slipping again throughout that episode, finding Mobius and all of them, like Casey, but they are back in their original lives. So we get to see who they were. Casey turns out to be from Alcatraz, like an Alcatraz. I was not,
which is an actual that's a real life person that escaped.
Yeah.
But he's not that personality. The personality he originally was on the timeline, very different.
But that could be after centuries of being in an office job
and getting his memory erased 3 times.
Yeah.
So
and that's why he has all those doodles in his drawer. All the Infinity Stones.
And why he didn't know what a fish was. Right. So he's a blank slate from who he originally was in the timeline. So
sorry, not necessarily a real person. The same character from Escape from Alcatraz, I believe, is the correlation.
Yeah. Loki hooks up with OB's real life, which was this Dr. Doug or AD Doug, Dr. Doug, who is a failed science fiction writer, but he's also a brilliant physicist and like inventor guy. And
In
then
his spare time.
his spare time, and he really wants just to be an author. He wants to be like Isaac Asimov, I guess. He's because he says like science is all about the what, but science fiction's about the who, or right? Exactly.
What now?
Yeah.
The what now? I can't remember now. Sorry, I'm probably butchering it, but but we see that OB's original life, Doug, gets the TVA handbook, also created another like sort of
Tempad,
Ouroboros.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're right. Makes an Ouroboros. Right.
Gets Ouroboros. They have to go like then collect the different people, like Mobius's real life. Mobius is not his real name, but we never even find out what his real name was.
Don.
Don.
He's
Don. He's from Cleveland. In 2022. So they're all from different like time periods and whatever. And he's got 2 kids, and he does sell jet skis because in the
got a couple for sale in his garage right now.
Yeah.
And so this was kind of but I didn't really. So it was like this is him collecting them on their original lives. When you think that they're going to build the TVA together, but that's not exactly what happens here. That this was the beginning of the TVA, which is kind of what it felt. Where season like when I was watching episode 5 at the time it aired, I was like, no, when they get to episode 6, that's where we're headed. But that's not quite what they do in episode 6.
You thought that the original show's ending was going to be Loki creating the TVA.
Yes, right, but that's not what happens. So we'll talk.
But we also know that He Who Remains is the one who created the TVA. So I think that they, even though it felt like that, and I'm not saying that you're wrong, because I kind of felt like that. At the same time, I knew that He Who Remained was the one who created the TVA. So I feel you in terms of that kind of misdirect.
Right, but the end of that 5th episode, where the universes are coming undone, we see that the timelines are all collapsing because they try to get the gang together and they're trying to like save because the temporal auras might help bring things back. But ultimately, what it comes down to is that Loki has to learn to time slip, and that also comes from him working with OB's variant or whatever, like the Dr. Doug guy, where he's like, no, you have to like try to control your time slipping, and eventually that's what. By the end of episode 5, that's really what he's able to do. Is kind of control where he goes and how to use his power, because all of existence is unraveling by the end of episode 5. And then he just goes no, and then we see, but then by the end he time slips back to that moment in the TVA when it was all going to be destroyed, which was a big also like conversation that he has with OB Doug. That it's impossible to go there, but it's also an impossible place to exist. So because they're both impossible, maybe it is possible, and ultimately that's kind of how Loki's able to get back there, is sort of like this double negative. I don't know. It was fun, guys. I enjoyed it. So
Dave, go with that.
I'm going with that. Okay, so then by episode 6, called Glorious Purpose.
Glorious Purpose,
which is also the name of season 1, episode 1. So now we
like an Ouroboros.
Like an Ouroboros. Does that, I guess, meaning that this is the end?
For now.
The end is the beginning. Is the end.
Yeah. Well, that means that if there is a season 3, episode 1 has to be called Glorious Purpose as well. So, and that's how they'll always finish it off.
No,
Loki,
wouldn't it be called a variant?
Maybe. So in the Glorious Purpose, the sequel, we see that Loki's time slipping back where we leave off in episode 5. The loom always is blowing up over and over again. We see that he kind of goes on like this ultimate like time loop over and over again, because he can time slip to any point, right? So he can keep going back earlier and earlier and trying to save Victor and trying to figure out how to prevent it happen. But he never tries to go out there himself, right? Which is ultimately what will happen by the end of this 6th episode. But he's like, oh no, but Victor, you were volunteered. And then we see him just getting smarter and smarter. And then eventually he figures out he has to learn all about the different physics. He's like, how long would it take? Like, they're like, well, decades. And then they're like, more like centuries, I was like, centuries. And so, yeah, he just like, so he becomes like, he becomes Doctor Who in some ways, right? Because he's just like, I know all this stuff because I've just been doing this timeline over and over and over again. There's a couple great Doctor Who episodes with time loops. There's one with the 12th Doctor in particular where he's like apparently stuck in this time loop for like a million years or something, stupid, right? And he's able to,
Doctor what now?
Doctor Who.
My eyes are glazing over.
Okay, well, but that's what the show. I feel like the show is like Marvel's version of Doctor Who in some ways. Anyway,
Let me make people angry and say, but better.
Maybe better, yeah.
Definitely better.
Definitely more produced.
So who's his companion? Is Morbius his companion?
Mobius or maybe Casey? I don't know.
Casey would fit the description of a lot of these secondary companions,
Right?
like Rose's boyfriend.
Yeah. What
I don't like Doctor Who, but surprisingly enough, I know enough to have a conversation about it.
Well, there you go. So you're in the know. It's anyway. But back to Loki. So, did you guys enjoy like this episode though? Him like how Loki was trying to basically do whatever he could to save the TVA, and where that led to.
Oh sure, he was all in, which is fucking weird for Loki. He was never all in on anything.
Were you like on the edge of your seat like I was? Were you excited?
I was waiting for. I was wait, and we got to it. I was waiting for. I was waiting for the conversation that was going to happen, and whenever you have this type of story where a conversation is going to happen, because anyone who's looping, there's eventually going to be an end to the loop, and there's going to be a conversation of what the next step is. What is the branch of, like, instead of staying in that same loop, what's going to be the end of that loop, right? And in this case, we knew that conversation was coming because we were introduced to that same conversation at the beginning of the conversation with He Who Remains. I know you're going to go and you're going to summarize that bit. So I was waiting for that conversation to happen where the cards are put on the table about this season and a decision would have to be made, right? We've seen this type of scenario or situation kind of appear multiple times in a lot of media, most notably and most horribly done in Matrix 2, right? Mm-hmm. Where it's like, okay, a decision is made and there's an exposition dump, and we get the man behind the curtain, or I don't even know what they call it in the Matrix. I just try to excuse that from my memory. The architect, yes, right. And there we go. we stop it, please. So horrible. And we got that. We got that. We got that. But in this case, once again, there's they knew what they were doing, and they understood to avoid the pitfalls where it's just words that have no meaning, that just glaze over people's heads, that don't have any type of weight, like with the architect speaking to Neo. This meant something. And I love the double play where it's like, okay, well, how many times have we done this conversation, right? And it's like, oh, okay. He assumes it's his first time, and then Loki reveals, nope, we've done this conversation.
That was a
before.
fun bit. I love it. Yeah. He was like, now it seems like he knows more than He Who Remains, and he's sort of like how Loki becomes very powerful, but also sort of very solitary. There's the whole. Watching the first episode from season 1 again, where he's like, "I need to be on my throne," which they do. Like, she go back to that moment from that very episode where he was still had the collar on when he was first captured by the TVA, when he branched off from the timeline after the events of Endgame, right? So
yeah, and we get that conversation with with Mobius, and we kind of find out even a little bit of the origin between the relationship between Mobius and Renslayer, and how their kind of paths kind of diverged a little bit in terms of their kind of idealistic view of the TVA and what it does. I thought that was very interesting as well.
Yeah, there's some interesting philosophical ideas in terms of just, like what's in terms of authority, governance, sort of like control and sort of self-determination versus more accepting of your assignments. I don't know. Like there was a lot of every episode I thought was very engaging. I was always looking forward to the next one. They were even making sure that you couldn't even get the show in the morning because they didn't want like spoilers to come out during the day where people would watch it in the morning. So they were like, no, it doesn't even come out till 9 o'clock at night. You can't even get it till late, right? Which was a bit of a break with some of the other streaming services, and even with Disney, with how they put out some of their other shows. But so the end of the finale, where it eventually leads to is Loki saying that it has to be me. I'm the one who has to do this. I have to go out there because he eventually gets Victor Timely to go out there and do the thing that they haven't been able to do after hundreds of years of trying, and
kills him so many times.
He kills him over and over and over again. He's like, no, you got this. Be brave. You got this. Be brave. And remember to be brave. And he just like got all these different
See you
things.
soon. See you soon.
See you soon. See you soon. Yeah. Well, everything with Sylvie, where he was like trying to stop her as well, where she's like, you're gonna have to kill me, and he wouldn't kill her, but he couldn't stop her. Every time she would always kill He Who Remains, and then everything with that. Like it was like the episode, one of the most memorable episodes I think of the show is this final episode, Glorious Purpose. And but and they even talk about Glorious Purpose. He's like, it's not a purpose is not glorious, it's a burden. It's more like you're glorified with burden as purpose. We see everything break down where Loki has to go out there himself. He walks out on the platform, he transforms, got the horns going. He's eventually able to fix the loom with magic, because what happened, okay, I guess what the detail we missed was that even though he was able to save the loom and it was able to handle more branches building, eventually there's going to be more and more branches and more and more and more. And so you can't let the timeline branch off indefinitely. You do have to do something.
You cannot scale for infinity.
Infinity, right? Is the dilemma. So Loki says, okay, well then, but the loom is a fail safe that He Who Remains created, where if it does explode, then it will just reset, and then the TVA, that's whatever. We can remake that.
It just protects the sacred timeline too. The loom. It'll just cut all the branches and protect the sacred timeline.
Right. So it's like that's more expendable because He Who Remains will always come back, be reincarnated, right? So Loki has to find a way to burn it all down and create something better, which is so eventually with the magic, he goes out there and he destroys the loom, which you see all the time, like the branches are dying, and he's able to basically enchant them or something with his green magic, and then he's able to bring it all together, become the god of stories. It's awesome. It's an awesome sequence. It looked amazing. It's the video I'm going to show you guys after the show was basically I took a lot of that footage because I love
tease the viewers like that.
I can't show it. It's copyright. So but what are you gonna do?
Maybe Murphy can do his magic and make a version that people can see. So stay tuned.
Okay. Yeah, and so everything breaks off from there, where Loki goes up onto this throne, and and Sylvie says he's giving us a chance to save it all, and then it all comes out, and we see it's that big tree from Norse mythology, the world tree,
Yggdrasil.
It's created there, and he's inside of it now. It's the god of stories, like you were saying, Davan. Really cool, real awesome. It was exciting. One of the best things I've seen in a long time from Marvel, in terms of how this executed in this finale.
And it's all menace. It seems like a happy ending, sort of, but it's not. It's all menace. When He Who Remains says, he's just well, if there are any other multiverses and not just the sacred timeline, there's a multiversal war that kills everybody, including the sacred timeline.
Right.
It's so we can have a sacred timeline or everybody can die. Those are your choices. So it's that's the menace for the upcoming Avengers movie.
Yeah.
Right.
So and we get told that the TVA is trying to track down the different Kang variants. So that's what they're doing. I believe you're going to be talking about the different endings of it. You're going into the ending, so I'll let you continue. Sorry, Dave.
Well, just that's fine. Just where they kind of leave all the characters because after Loki sort of goes in there, but like Sylvie does say that Loki's just giving us a chance by what he's doing to sort of change the narrative, change He Who Remains and Kang's sort of like checkmate that they've all had for infinity, right? In all these multiverse wars, eventually the Kang variant comes out on top, just one. And is in control, and so they're trying to break that cycle. That's what Sylvie wants. That's what she represents in the show, is trying to break, I guess, convention and orthodoxy, the soulless minions of orthodoxy, if you will. And that's what Loki's like giving them a chance to do. But there's still going to have to be a bigger secret war, I guess, is that's where we're leading to here. Which is exciting as well, you know, seeing what that's going to look like in like the MCU's version.
I suspect the plan is for the Kang Dynasty. That's when like the Kangs all fight each other, and then there'll be like a winner or a small group of winners would be my guess, and then the Avengers will show up and like destroy them.
Yeah,
or try to eat them, or not the Avengers. Everybody from the multiverse.
So just to wrap up the endings here, we see that at post Loki, Ouroboros reactivates the now friendly Miss Minutes. So they're like, is she going to try to kill us all? He's like, maybe, I don't know. I was like, don't reactivate her. What are we doing? Like, this is the worst idea ever.
She's very helpful, Dave.
Yeah, I know. There was a new TVA handbook created by Ouroboros, and he gives Timely as the co-author. But we see in a cutaway scene in 1863, the young Timely, who's like a candle maker kid, doesn't get the book, and so he doesn't become Victor, or that version of Victor Timely, I guess, where he knows everything. And then we see Renslayer wakes up in the void, where that Alioth dog thing eats her. I guess, or we don't know if it does. Alioth. Yeah, sorry. We don't know what happens to her, but it doesn't look good. She's in the void because she got pruned in episode 4, so we're catching up with her from then. And then Mobius retires from the TVA, and they watch, his kids, in the distance. But I don't know what exactly Mobius is going to do next. If we'll see his character again or not. I hope we do. And that's where it ends. I guess we see Loki at the end. I guess he's just there with all the green vines or threads or whatever around him, and but like the look on his face at the end was like, wow. And then like that theme that goes into the credits is banging. It's really strong. Like this music, I think is one of the best scores MCU's ever had. Natalie Holt, the composer, deserves give her the Emmys, give her all the awards, give her the daytime.
Well, it's an adaptation from the first season. She did a great job then as well. The Loki theme and the variants that they have of it. They have Loki green. I don't know what this last episode version of the Loki theme was, but it's fantastic. I cannot wait. I cannot wait to the Avengers movie, whatever it may be, and that music kicks in or a variation of it, because I'm going to be like, I've heard it enough that I'll be looking for it. I know what the Captain America theme is. You know what a lot of these characters main instrumental theme is. We know the Avengers theme, and when that Loki theme comes in, I know that if it is a hardcore audience, they're going to start to cheer because they know that Loki is just around the corner.
Yeah, it's fully. I love it. Like on those credits, they keep showing us all that close up shots, like the TVA imagery, and I love how the TVA set design with all that 70s sort of esque, more office, more physical paper folders and inks and stamps and little paper clips and those kinds of things. Physical reports, no computers, I guess, in the TVA, but they're these Commodore 64 type machines, right? Just all that stuff with the show just is so endearing for me, and it adds this whole extra little layer. And I'm like, give me more of this, or give me more of the TVA. Give me a TVA spinoff. I don't know. I'm into
It's quite hilarious that you're just about the Office Space guys, of, the Marvel universe. Oh, the superheroes. I like the guys pushing the pencils.
Yeah, I
Look
want
at those
Casey. The star of the show is Casey, and he's like just wants to know what a fish is, and so that's mostly.
Is that a fish?
Is that a fish? He's gonna turn me into a fish. Okay. So let's. Do we talk about? We've talked about all the episodes. We've talked about the characters. Just the different things. The set design. Really loved all that key lime pie. Some of the imagery that came out of this. Starting to like really look, because it was one thing I heard today. We saw here with Loki is the god of stories in the end with all that green around him, and they're like, that's why the time stone is green in the MCU, because Loki's sort of on the inside of time now, and controlling it from that end. And you're like, whoa, that's kind of an interesting correlation. And why the TVA has like these splashes of green sort of in certain places as well. That are more used against like the orange and like the more 70s vibe that we get in the different places. So guys, is there any trivia? Is there anything else we've missed? Because we can just get into some ratings here. And
Ratings
10
out of 10.
10 out of 10.
Pretty sure I gave the first season a 10, and I like this season better than the last.
Hold on,
season.
let me bring it up.
What did I give? Okay, what did I give last season?
Okay, let's see. So the season 1 you gave an 8.5. Jaemeel, Davan gave it a 10. Davan gave season 1 a 10, so and I gave it a 9.5 season 1. So here we are.
10, Dave.
10. You liked it just as much. Oh, sorry.
I meant you. You liked it better than last season, didn't you?
I think so.
You think so? Do you know so? Or like,
I liked the ending a lot. So
That's great.
But I think I liked some of the episodes in season 1 more. So it's kind of tough. I think that third episode maybe is. I liked it just as much. I'll give it a 9.8. It was really good.
No conviction.
Why'd you do that? It's a sliding scale, so 10.
It's a 10. So we're averaging a 9.9.
Silly now, don't you, Dave?
I can raise my rating to a 9.9. Oh, that average is a 10.
Look at the pity point 1.
I gave you the pity point, guys. I'm not gonna say perfect. It was near perfect. But what is IMDb giving it? It's like
let's take a
9.6. 9.6 on IMDb. So.
Let's take a stroll through social media very quickly while you're queuing up what we're going to be talking about next.
Oh, sure.
Let's see. I couldn't get past the first episode. I really like the second season, but the first episodes are pretty slow. It's moving along rather slow in season 2. Let's see. Waiting for the last episode so I can binge it all. I was a big fan of the first season, but it takes so long for the next season to come out. I've forgotten everything from before. Therefore, I lose interest and don't watch it past the first episode.
Well, Jane said that she lost interest in the show. I had to kind of like say, like, you need to finish the show. It's really good. And then she did today, and she was like, but it's not like holding. She's like, she had no direct criticism. She was just like, it's not.
Okay. The story could be a little darker and deeper. It's just a bit weird and not executed well enough to hold people's attention.
I disagree. I think the show is really good. I was like, every episode really left me going, oh, what's next? What's next? But I'm
not
invested.
hard to find naysayers on the internets.
Yeah,
very true. But given the whole hubbub about Marvel as of late, there is a vocal, group that is expressing their disinterest with Marvel. And I think there's a bunch of elements. Some of it is partially true, but some of it is due to people's lack of media literacy as well. Like,
sure, maybe
I'm just saying that people are used to a story that is pretty straightforward and pretty basic in terms of motivations and character progression, that anything that might be necessarily challenging is balked at. So I think there's a bit of that's involved where instead of a kind of straightforward story that season 1 was, this one, was asking a little bit more of its audience, and not all of the audience is up for the challenge.
Well, so I think it's maybe just not everybody's cup of tea. It's also as well. I think some people are also jumping on the Marvel is sucking right now, or Marvel is dying or whatever. And I don't feel like that either, maybe. Although I feel like there's been a lot of misses lately. I think Secret Invasion was rough.
Really rough.
We all agreed on that. There was a few other ones that we were split on, like, even.
But like Werewolf by Night was friggin' great. And like this was really good. Great.
Like how many bad items were that occurred in a row? I think people are kind of just forgetting.
Well, it depends. You gotta remember, so we don't agree on all of these, but because I liked the holiday special for Guardians of the Galaxy, but you guys didn't. What else? Like Secret Invasion, we all agreed was not great.
But like
we're gonna be talking about the Marvels next, which is we'll see how that
I'm
goes.
looking forward to it.
Yeah, but like
Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania has been considered to be a bad
fine.
movie, and I look at my rating now at an 8.5. I'm like, did I give this movie an 8.5? Because I feel like that's probably too high. But
I don't think it was too high.
Listen to other people,
right?
Well, I don't think it's aged well. That movie.
I just mean, look at the ratings. It is up and down.
It's mostly up, right? Like if you look at it, we're mostly in the 9s and the 8s and whatever. But then once in a while, we have a stinker, like I Am Groot.
That's you two. I had nothing to do with that one.
Thor: Love and Thunder was not great. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness was not great. We agreed on that. So there's been a couple bad ones, or mediocre even. Falcon and the Winter Soldier, we didn't love those.
I like that one a lot.
You didn't rate it.
You didn't rate it. What's your rating on the Falcon and the Winter Soldier?
Oh, I just rewatched it recently, like a 9. I loved it.
Okay, well, you'll bring up the rating quite a bit with that.
Look, my problem with the Falcon and Winter Soldier, and I think it's indicative to a lot of the things with the MCU, is there's a lot of pegs, square pegs being, put into round holes, right? And not everything works so well. Falcon and Winter Soldier, it is a movie. It is not a TV show. It does not feel like a TV show, right? I gave it a low rating because I gave it a low rating because I had issues in terms of how uneven it is, because obviously there were storylines that were cut out of this movie, right? And the pacing is kind of up in there, but overall, hey, folks, 7.3 is not a bad movie, right? No. Not everything is going to be 10s.
Can I have your WandaVision and Black Widow ratings?
WandaVision 9, Black Widow 7, Shang-Chi. Oh, I like Shang-Chi quite a bit actually. 9. Hawkeye loved it. 9.
There you go. So.
I'm the naysayer for Hawkeye.
Well, I average a little lower than you two. You guys are averaging 8.1 overall. I'm averaging a 7.8, so I'm a slightly lower.
Me and Jaemeel are quite agreed on the quality of Marvel,
which is, some of it's been good, some of it's been bad, but
overall it's good. Like we're averaging almost an 8. So it's sorry, can't see that.
I think people have a lot of rose-colored glasses with like pre-Endgame stuff. Like it wasn't all fantastic.
People forget about Iron Man 2 and Thor 2.
Thor 2.
Yeah. And how big of a nothing burgers those two movies were.
The Incredible Hulk.
Those were huge nothing burgers. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Incredible Hulk. I hate that movie.
Even think about. Yeah,
hate that movie. And the only people, the people loudest that talk about that movie and how great it was is just because stuff gets blown up and smashed together at the last 20 minutes on Yonge Street. No, thank you. It's a terrible movie.
But they've also had, like, guys, we've done 20. We're going to do the Marvels sometime in the next few days, I guess, whenever we all get around to seeing it and get to talk about it. But that is our 24th review post Endgame. So there have been 24 things have come out since Endgame, including WandaVision, Werewolf by Night, all that kind of stuff, right? So I think Endgame was like if you add up all the MCU things that came out before Endgame, it doesn't add up to 24. So I think more things have actually come out since Endgame. So but what I'm really starving for here is an Avengers movie. I'm like, when are we gonna get the like something more exciting and more?
No, X-Men. The X-Men is where your excitement will be, Dave. That's where you will get your excitement.
Well, sure. Like, where's that? Like, it feels like they forgot about the X-Men.
They didn't forget. The only project they're gonna have next year is Deadpool 3.
Deadpool 3 and the television stuff, which is going to be Echo, X-Men 97, and
and 97,
I think
of course.
And there's going to be one more thing. I think there's going to be one more thing.
But how long till Secret Wars? 2 more years?
Well,
no, like 6-10 more years.
Secret Wars specifically, yeah. So because was it Captain America: Brave New World got pushed back from 2024 to 2025, and then was it the movie that was supposed Thunderbolts got pushed back to 2025 as well, later 2025. So yeah, there's nothing 2024. There's a lot of things that are filmed or partially filmed. Like they might scrap Wonder Man, Agatha House of whatever the tagline. That's I think been pushed back too.
Where's Shang-Chi?
What do you say? Who cares?
I don't care. I don't need an Agatha show. I liked her.
I don't mind Agatha show. I don't mind Agatha show.
I don't care when that comes out.
Mr. Office Space, Mr. Office TVA. You're talking about what we need and what we don't need.
I'm telling you what we don't need, and what we do need is more of what we do need. What we do need is an Avengers movie. You need to bring the characters together, like Shang-Chi, like Black Panther, like even I don't know, Ant-Man. I don't know, get him in the mix. Doctor Strange. Like we have all these characters.
So Doctor Strange is gonna leave Clea and just like, hey, I'm back, Avengers, for a hot second. I'm gonna go back and leave for Dormammu in a hot like. Yes. How does that work?
I don't know. You're right about like, hey, we need to go find Doctor Strange, and then you get Wong, and Wong's like, I don't know, I do a spell, all right, and then it's all gonna come
the Avengers should be like Captain America, Wong, not Doctor Strange, Wong, right? Should be what is it? Black Widow, the new Black Widow.
We could debate the particulars of it all. It's fine, but it's like that's what we need. We need to get the group back together. What's down? Oh, he's gonna go. Okay. So we should wrap up the show, probably.
We should.
Yeah. Okay. I can talk all night about this, I think.
Okay. All right. Wait, is this not part of a multiverse, but of a universe, right?
Well, yes. So, check out our next podcast. We're going to talk about the Marvels. I think we're going to continue this conversation, maybe about the overall state of the MCU, because it probably won't talk about as long to talk about the plot of the Marvels as it did to talk about the plot of all 6 episodes of Loki. So we'll be back maybe Sunday, maybe Monday. We'll see or Tuesday or something like that. We'll figure out when we'll be back because Big Brother's over now. But you should check out our Big Brother coverage. We just me and Jaemeel did 35 podcasts over 100 days. It was a marathon, and we just finished it last night. So go check out that. If you like Big Brother, if you like Survivor, we're also talking about Survivor right now, season 45. And of course, the Merry Maiden Marvel Society, our United Federation of podcasts, which features other channels like Live Long, a podcast, our Star Trek channel. We got Eamon on Track music channel, where I believe Davan tomorrow is going to be talking about a music album, some kind of jazz album. With this is the moment where Davin's not here. You also got Hold Up with Davin and Murphy, where they talk movies. Jaemeel, you said that they're talking about radio movies.
Radios with Airheads and Pontypool. What's the third movie? Airheads, Pontypool, and
Radioland Killers, something like
Okay.
Radioland Murders or something like that.
Okay.
Very Murphy pick.
Very Murphy pick. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's all about the X-Men here in the MCU and in the podcast community. You know?
X-rated the X-Men the animated review show. So you guys are. When are you guys talking Gen X? Are you talking about that soon?
Yep, this Tuesday.
14th.
On the 14th. Listen for that, guys. Graphic Histories podcast. André Myette. All kinds of
coming up with who's up next? I forget. But after that, Kalman Androvosovsky's up next. Yeah.
Oh, very good. And a trivial debates on Sunday, I believe, coming up, right?
Is it the Transformers one?
Yeah, Transformers.
Finally happening?
Yeah, I think so. Someone's coming over here to use the old studio.
Oh, there you go. Well, the new studio.
Yeah, the new studio.
Well, Davan, you have the touch. You got the power.
And what are you talking tomorrow with Eamon? Eamon on Track Music Podcast?
SMV Thunder. We're talking about some Marcus Miller, some Stanley Clark, some Victor Wooten. The three greatest bass players on earth playing bass together. Listen to it.
Is it 2 episodes of Eamon on Track this week?
Yep. He's killing it these days.
Yeah, wow. He's
big output coming from Eamon on Track. So look, check more episodes to come over there. All right, guys. So we'll get out of here for tonight. So you guys need to stay on after we go off the air because I have to show you my video, which I can't show to the viewers.
That's fine.
But
stay tuned. The Murphy version hopefully will be coming soon.
Yeah, where he reverses it or something. Okay, well, thanks, guys. Thanks for being with us here on the Mary Mater Marvel Society. And I don't know, we don't have an outro for specific to Loki. So how about we'll play the Ant-Man one instead because it's got Kang.
Play the original.
Which
the original. Yeah, it does have Kang. You're right.
Okay, we're going with the Kang one. Here we go.